Traders, welcome back to the channel. We're going over the SP500, the Nasdaq 100, everything in between to get you ready for this trading week. Do I expect more lows to be coming in? Do I think we're still bearish? How is the market treating us right now? And everything you need to know based on the data that was released this past Friday. Before we get into that, I ask you to consider doing two things: liking and subscribing, because it helps out the channel tremendously. Just so you know, I'm posting videos every single day to get you ready for this market and what you need to know going into the next trading day so you're not taken by surprise. Now, I'm going to get right into the juicy stuff here first. We're going to go right into the key data that was dropped on us yesterday. Now, going into yesterday, what happened? You had new home sales coming out. That actually was the big breaker going early in the morning that really helped you start going on. We're looking at the chart and what we'll be looking at here in a second. So you actually had a beat here, right here over the month of May. You were down for the past 4 months. This was a really nice surprise beat there. It's also important to know going into summer, this is typically the best time for home sales overall every single year. To look at the data going into summer months, that's the prime time for real estate. Usually winter is when it starts to slow down. Going back over as well, I want to look at something very, very crucial, if you will. If you come over here, you can actually see the inflation expectation and report, and the sentiment was overall decent. It was not shifting for more inflation, and it was shifting a little bit further for less inflation. So anything along those lines was very, very good, and this definitely helps you keep going for that continuation. What happened with SPY? What happened with indexes? What happened in general? Now, what did I say the previous day? Well, what was I saying? I said I expected downside, and I compared this movement right here. This is where we were trading. This was yesterday's video, or the video from Thursday, if you will. This was the video we made on Thursday. We didn't make a video on Friday. But after we made this video, I said, look, this is the range you're trading in for the past, going into this week. This is where you were trading. This is how you're moving 1, 2, 3, 4 days trading in this range. If we go back, what happened here? This is the same movement that we had back between the 27th of May for locally 2 weeks to the 9th of June, right? Same type of movement, just less days in the range, right? So you traded like this, same chop right here for 3 days in this period right here. What did I say here? It was the same overall viewpoint that we had at the last one. I said, look, if you're trying to day trade this, you're not going to get far. You're going to be able to trade the trend up and down, up and down, up and down. However, what you're looking for is a clean break, and I haven't touched this chart whatsoever, is a clean break of either the top or the bottom. And now, what happened when I said that last time? We're going to look at the same exact examples to show you that this strategy really does work. What happened? Now, this is exactly what happened last time. You broke out of this zone that we had marked. I haven't touched this whatsoever since the last time we talked about this. You broke down. You came very strongly down that day. And let's say you didn't get in this day. Let's say hypothetically you're like, okay, I'm going to wait for a full day to close out. And then right here, you got in on this little move up, and then you continue down even further. Like I said, and you ended up making new lows. What happened here? Now, going into this, you came out of the gates pretty strong with a little bit of pre-market action pushing you up on the S&P. We'll get into the Nasdaq here in a sec. And then you started pushing up even further towards 390 on the SPY to complete that gap fill right there. Very important to know that alone. This was pretty ideal price action. Now, it's worth mentioning all the action that you're getting on that trading, so you know, is essentially the first 30 minutes of trading, but the last, you can say the next 5 hours of trading are essentially useless. You're not moving very much. It's a very slow chop. And then you had a little bit of pumping up in the last, 20, 30 minutes of trading. You got a majority of that upside moving from 388 all the way to 390. Now, that's what happened there. Now, looking at that, what am I saying? Now, I'm going to admit right now, going into this, I expected more downside. I thought you would start slipping. However, I did say data could come out any which way. We've already seen what Powell is saying, the head of our Fed, and he's saying every single day they don't have clear-cut projections. The person in charge of our Fed monetary policy has no real projections. They are reacting accordingly. That's his complete words. We've also gone over him saying that this inflation is not coming from Russia. It's being, definitely spiked a little bit from them. It's being affected a little bit more from them. However, inflation was already working in the works from 1% to 7% without the mention of Ukraine and Russia. You're already having all this inflation hitting us. Now, we are getting a little bit of a relief bounce. This is overall like you're getting somewhat of a bounce. Now, what I will say, in my opinion, does it look as strong as previous bounces? It's a little early to decide here. However, what I'm going to tell you right now is I think it does look a little bit weaker. I think you're seeing a lot more initial strength on these bounces here. Now, are you getting some strength here? Yes. The Friday, you got a lot of movement. You got really good movement here, and then you got really good movement on Monday. So overall, those were your two really big days. But besides that, none of the movement was really that great. Friday, Monday, or Tuesday, sorry, Monday was a holiday. Those were your real big movers. Besides that, a lot of chop. Now, what am I looking for here? People are going to be asking you bullish, you bearish, where's your exact viewpoint? Now, I'm kind of careful what I say here because people are getting really upset with overall, I guess, some of the way I'm making the videos here. And I'm not trying to mislead anyone. I'm just giving my overall opinion and I'm sharing data. I'm not telling anyone that this has to happen or anything like that. What I want to point out, though, is there is definitely a discrepancy between SPY and Qs. So if you look at the Nasdaq in comparison to Qs, the Nasdaq comparison to SPY, I'm sorry. If you look here, you can see the Qs are already back above and trying to fill that second gap, which is locally to that range of about 299, 300 right here. That's where you're looking like you want to go next. Fill that gap on Qs. It's already happening as we speak. Again, looking at SPY, you really have to zoom in here, but you can see you just filled that bottom gap. Qs are already basically at the equivalent of 395 on SPY. So Qs are already moving. So that's what I want to point out right now. Now, as we get out of here really quick, I want to show you the futures on Nasdaq. This was something that I wanted to point out that was also something that I ignored personally. So going into this, I can say that I was a little bit on the biased end of being a bear here. I was coming into this. I was like, look, I think we're going to go down more. Data points that way. I was ignoring how heavily shorted we were, how many shorts were coming into the market at the time, the overall flow, and just overall sentiment as well. Now, again, I'm still pretty bearish in general until you get above some key levels. Now, once you start making some higher highs here, once you start breaking above, let's say you break above 12.9, then I'm probably going to turn pretty bullish. If you start breaking above 12.9, you're very bullish in my opinion, and you're on the track for some sort of recovery. Until then, I think you're just getting a little bit of a bounce and then possibly setting up for some more downside. But we need to talk about, things that go into that first. Now, I said this. You were chopping on SPY and on ES, but on NASDAQ, you actually were making higher lows. So you can actually see how the pattern looks different here. So if we look at SPY in comparison to NQ, SPY moving very sideways, going back to NQ, you can see we look pretty different, right? You're making those higher lows, which I did point out. And I said, this is a little bit more bullish. This looks different because if we go back to when SPY was, chopping before, this was that same period we talked about. You see NASDAQ was also chopping in that range as well. So now as we're looking at this looks a little bit more enticing, like you're actually getting some breakout up here. But you're seeing the Nasdaq is coming into some resistance. So what am I looking for on Monday morning? Where am I looking for us to go? You're probably going to open up around 12.25 to 12.3. This is going to be a pretty big level in my opinion. This is going to be a very big test. If you get it back to this level, chances are you're going back to 12.8, 12.9. Okay, so by any chance you start to break back above this level, you come out Monday morning, you break above, retest, you're going to 12.7, 12.8. It's just going to happen, in my opinion, if you get back above this range. Now, what am I looking for personally from this range? It's how you play every resistance, people. You play it to push up and get rejected, most likely back down to 12, 12.1 locally. But what to play by ear and see exactly how we're working here. It's important to realize, though, you are pushing up pretty volatile here on the Nasdaq in comparison to S&P, and it's showing that a lot of people that are buying this are buying into tech. But something that's really interesting to me, if we look back over the previous days, SPY was something that was heavily shorted in comparison to Nasdaq, and that was really interesting to me. So as we look at what's happening here, one of the things that I want to talk about that is probably the reason, it's something we've been talking about a lot in Discord between me, Jay Ream, Cajun. If you're in Discord, you know Cajun very well. The link for Discord is down below. But obviously going into this, one thing we were talking about is most of this movement based on volume. If you're looking at intraday volume with how these moves are happening, it's most likely coming from hedging on positions for options. So if people are selling puts, then market makers have to buy those shares, correct? They have to. So going into that, that's a lot of our opinion on what's going on here, especially because people are shorting stuff like tech en masse if you look at what's happening. So let's just take a quick little look at some of these stocks that are been heavily hit, right? So if we look at something like Caterpillar, this is why we talked about John Deere a lot over the past few days. So Caterpillar, if we look, we're going to look at previous lows from COVID, or previous highs, if you will. So these are your previous highs. This is your previous high right here. So you can see, like, in industrial, you're sitting very much still. You have a lot of room to go down. You still have locally like 40, 30, 35 points, right, until you get to that range. And we get a John Deere, another industrial, coming back. These are your COVID lows down here, right down here. This is your COVID low, 178. You're still at 310. You have over $100 to go down, right? And then you can continue going down this list. Something like Boeing, you're already back down there and you never really recovered. But some of these are really still sticking up there. But when you come over to tech and you look at some of this sector, this is where things can kind of get concerning. So looking really quick, we're going to look at PayPal. PayPal has already dipped below COVID lows right here. These are your COVID lows. I'm just giving you an example of some Nasdaq stocks and what's really happening here. I don't use Tesla because Tesla's already kind of gone crazy. Going back to Apple, you can look at Apple going back to COVID lows. They're back here. This is one of the good producers. This is one of the good ones, primarily a SPY stock. It is a major holding in both, though. However, it's a bigger holding in SPY. So that's one thing to be looking at. But as you're looking here, it still has a lot of range to go down. But as you come back to tech, looking at Zoom, what's happening here? Zoom getting crushed, coming all the way back down to previous COVID lows. You've already actually tested those. So when you keep going down this rabbit hole and looking, you're seeing a lot of these techs were already heavily shorted. I mean, look at something like Affirm. Affirm's come all the way back down from that monstrous climb to 170. I mean, the list goes on. Upstart, all these major players that everyone was looking at. Shopify. They're all getting killed right now. So if I'm looking at this, I'm looking at, look, Nasdaq was the heavily shorted one, and this is where I'm going with this. So that's probably why you're getting more movement on Nasdaq, and kind of explains some of the movement that we're seeing here. Now, I am not trying to justify my thesis whatsoever of saying that we have to go down. I'm just trying to play and understand why the Nasdaq is moving higher during this range, because we can agree the Nasdaq is moving better than the S&P is right now. So tech is actually getting more of that money flowing into it right now. And so when you come back and look at the options flow, when we were going over this, the put to call ratio, there was a lot more puts coming in on SPY on the past few days. It was really interesting to me. But now as we come back in here, look at something that's coming in for Qs. As we look at Qs, the ratio is almost double what it is for SPY. And this was very interesting to me coming into the end of the day, especially because we ended so strong. So we actually have been, scaling down and down and down on the overall indexes. And someone actually commented on one of my videos, I think it was earlier today. And this is something they said here on the channel. And by no means, I don't want people to feel like they can't comment. I always encourage you to comment. But I made a video and I was totally wrong. I assumed we'd have more downside, which we did not get. And they said, we're actually back in a bull market right now. This guy has missed all the action. I can't believe he shorted Tesla, which I did short Tesla, and I lost on that play. I did. Worst move possible, $100. He'll change his YouTube channel name again within a month. Now, going into that, obviously everyone knows I rebranded to option drops because I want to cover specific broad markets like this. But I want to just talk about something. If you really look at this from a broad scale, just go to the daily chart. Are you bullish yet? Can we agree? Are you there yet? Have you come to a bullish sense? And this is kind of where people are sitting at right now, is you're getting little bounces and they're like, okay, we're back. Now, I'm not against that thesis, but we need to start breaking some trends until we can really start saying that. And in my opinion, you haven't really broken any trends. You finally broke past your previous low, which you've been holding below, which congratulations. We did that back here remember in March, we had that huge bounce and then we came back down. So we're going to need more data. GDP is coming out. GDP is going to be very big. So be on the lookout for GDP coming up very soon. I think it's on Wednesday. That's going to be a really big data point. But overall, we are in the works of potentially getting back to these higher levels. You just, in my opinion, you got to start breaking past some key levels before you can say, we're looking bullish or we're looking for, another rally or something like that. And I want people to feel very comfortable commenting whatever they want here on the channel. I don't want to block people or anything like that. However, I don't think we can mislead people by saying that we're in a bull market right now, because it's very obvious you are not. So hopefully you got something out of this video and what overall I'm looking for going into this week to come. There's a lot of key factors looking into it right now. Overall right now, I have little to no positions whatsoever on the market. I'm just playing this by ear to see how you move. You had a really good rally at the end of the day on Friday. I'm anticipating a push up to 12.3, 12.25 roughly. And then from there, we need to see how we react on the Nasdaq. Going over to ES, you're most likely, you got to your profit where I wanted you to hit on ES. ES came to 3,900, 3,910. That's where you're at right now. Next level's about 4,000 and locally 4,000, 4,020. So that's going to be a really big push if you're going to get it. You might just hit like 390, 3970 right here as well. We'll have more stuff coming out on this as well coming in Monday morning. Have a good weekend, traders.